There have been a number of under-the-radar players that could make a huge difference for the Arizona Wildcats football team this coming year.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The show is brought to you by LinkedIn. Check it out, linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. All right, thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we got a lot to get to this show. All right, but first and foremost, happy belated birthday to the great Teteroa McMillan, the best wide receiver in college football, and somebody that we do not see around here much. As a matter of fact, he's the best wide receiver in school history. If you watch some of his highlights, if you watch just his acceleration, his jump ball skills, he's something that doesn't come around very often. As a matter of fact, around here, he doesn't come around. I always thought for the longest time that Dennis Northcutt was the best wide receiver in school history, and I begrudgingly fought this for a while, but now it is fair to say that Teteroa McMillan is the best wide receiver in U of A history. He is that good. So, and again, he will be off to the NFL next year. I would imagine he will be a top 15 pick, and again, also a kid that showed a ton of loyalty, which I think is very, very cool in this day and age. You don't see that a lot. Honestly, McMillan, Noah Fafita, they could have all left. They could have all left for greener pastures, and they didn't. They stayed here. And then not only that, it's fair to say too that this dude is just kind of a generational talent. So again, we will keep you up to date on how he's doing. But as always, he is killing it in spring practice. That is what we are going to talk about today. So we're just going to kind of go, players that have caught our attention and, who you need to know. Now, the first one is Genesis Smith. Now, Arizona football has a very, very nice kind of three-headed safety group in that you've got Genesis Smith, who we're going to get back to in a second. You got Gunnar Maldonado. My bad, Gunnar. Again, I was very wrong on Gunnar Maldonado. Gunnar Maldonado is very good. He is a very good football player. And by the end of the season, let's be honest. You could make the case that he was the best football player on the field against Oklahoma. He was everywhere. My bad, Gunnar. Again, on this show, on other shows, I enjoy apologizing because that means that somebody who I didn't think was good turned out to be really, really good. So I will, but again, Gunnar Maldonado, a total beast, and somebody that really kind of gives you a sense of comfort, I guess, in back there. And then Dalton Johnson, kind of the same thing. Dalton Johnson was always good, though. I don't know why, honestly, he didn't start over what's his name? Christian Young. Christian Young was not the greatest football player in the world. He usually took some bad angles, and there was just a lot not to like about Christian Young and his cover skills. But Dalton Johnson, as everything that Christian Young was kind of lacking, Dalton Johnson has made up for. Dalton Johnson, again, he is another player that probably has some NFL potential. He's around the ball. You can tell that he picks up football very, very quickly. And I think at the safety position, those are the dudes that you just kind of notice. The guys that just pick things up early, pick things up quickly, and he is certainly one of those guys. Then You've also got a player in Genesis Smith. Now, again, Genesis Smith is a fun story for me because Genesis Smith was, I thought, wildly underrated coming out of high school. I thought Genesis Smith was a player that probably should have been a mid 4-star recruit, and I didn't really understand why he wasn't. And the big reason why is he checks off all the boxes. You watch him, you go out there, and you immediately know that he is big, and he just kind of looks different. He looks different than anybody else. Not only does he look different than anybody else, he also he's got that look of a NFL type safety. Now, again, he's a dude who, still has to get better at some things, but he had a nice interception the other day. And he's just kind of around the ball. And when you're that big, when you're that strong, and you're that physical, and you're just kind of around the ball at will, that's a unique quality. And he's kind of been I think he's going to be kind of an enforcer on the back end. Having Duane Akina back there makes me feel very, very comfortable about Genesis Smith because, again, we've talked about it a billion times. Duane Akina is about as good a college defensive backs coach as there has ever been. And that is not hyperbole. Not only is that not hyperbole, I think it's pretty much the truth because you just look at the players that he has, that he's put out there. It's pretty much second to none. And so him working with Genesis Smith, him being, again, the defensive coordinator, I think is a great thing for Arizona. Not only is it a great thing for Arizona, I think it is I think it's something that Genesis Smith is going to greatly benefit from. But back to Smith for a second, I think he's going to be everywhere this year. I think he's going to be putting up tackles. I think he's going to be putting up huge numbers. Not only huge numbers, but I think he's going to start shooting onto some NFL draft, boards as somebody to keep an eye on in the coming future. And again, big reason why is just that he's got kind of an innate ability, and he's just physically imposing. That's the other thing. You look at Gunnar Maldonado, you look at Dalton Johnson. They're obviously very good football players. I don't know that they're physically imposing. Arizona really hasn't had a ton of physically imposing safeties. Who Smith looks like? He looks a little bit like Adam Hall did. And I think Adam Hall, if he hadn't had the injuries and some of the other issues, he could have been an NFL player. But Smith has looked really, really good, and I expect those safeties. Well, again, you don't want him to put up a ton of tackling numbers, but they're going to be moved all around. I think Genesis Smith will be in the box at times, as will obviously Gunnar Maldonado. Dalton Johnson will probably be patrolling the back end. But those three dudes, I don't know that there's really a better safety combination in the Big 12. If there is a better safety combination in the Big 12, I'd like to see it because I don't know that there is, honestly. Again, I'd love to see it, but I haven't seen that. But Smith is a monster, and we already know, like I said, what Gunnar Maldonado can do and what Dalton Johnson can do. And then you got Tacario Davis, obviously a total beast. He's going to be Arizona's number one corner, and he's looked good. Again, he's he should be one of the best DBs in the Big 12. I think the big thing with Tacario is just learning to catch the ball, because if Tacario can learn to catch the ball, he would have 35 interceptions last year. But those are four really, really nice pieces on the back end. Now, I think at that other corner spot, you need to get some depth. Not only do you need to get some depth, you need to be able to get a player who is kind of that ideal, number two. Maybe it's G7. I don't know. I don't necessarily see that, but it could be. And if that is the case, then, Arizona's set. But overall, this is still a unit that I think is, like I said, this is still a unit that has got a lot of potential and a lot of stuff to be able to work with. But the safeties, like I said, they look really good. And I think Genesis Smith could be a very much of a breakout player. Now, somebody who hasn't played a ton, but is one of the older players and has been here for quite a while, is also somebody we're going to talk about next. But first, LinkedIn. Check it out. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Listen, everybody knows somebody that got a job through LinkedIn. You know somebody that got a job through LinkedIn. I know somebody that got a job through LinkedIn. We all know somebody that got a job through LinkedIn. So again, check it out. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. There's another one of those cases where you will definitely thank me later on this one, because this is used for people to hire. This is used for people to, look for jobs. And not only, and also additionally, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege is just, it's a great way to support the site. So again, check it out. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Michael Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit of the tight end position. Now, I think going into the year, and I still have the belief that this does need to be Kean Burnett's position. I do believe that Kean Burnett has the most upside, but I do understand also playing the best players. That was something that I think Jedd Fisch struggled with a little bit. Honestly, I thought that there were certain times with players where certain players should have just been playing, like Noah Fafita. Jaden DeLauro, let's be honest, JDL was terrible last season. And every single presser, Jedd Fisch just kept talking about, well, no matter how good Noah Fafita did, well, mainly it was because, Jaden, we have two great quarterbacks, all of that crap. And again, JDL just wasn't very good. And honestly, Jedd didn't. I don't think Jedd wanted to play Noah. I think that was very evident. There's some other positions as well. You look at the wide receiver. I don't know why you just had to have 3 wide receivers last year, but either way, there were certain players that just, probably shouldn't be out there or in the manner in which they were. But this new coaching staff, obviously it's a new day. They're a new day, a new tide, all of that. Roberto Miranda has looked very, very good at tight end. Now, Roberto Miranda has been around here for quite a while. I'll be honest with you, I actually forgot Roberto Miranda was on the roster. But again, he's a big dude. He's been catching passes. And something else that about this coaching staff, you can tell that they are 1,000% going to utilize the tight end a lot. Now, Jedd Fisch did a good job of utilizing it as well. You had Tanner McLaughlin, who I think was Tanner McLaughlin, a player who was, going to play on the, who's going to play in the NFL. And that was a good find by Fisch. And, they utilized him a ton. But Jedd was definitely not a big believer in depth. And not only was he not a big believer in depth, he just didn't really, I guess, believe in it. So essentially you had one player who that was going to be the case. And not only was that going to be the case, that was going to be the dude, whoever it was. Now, Miranda, I think you got a bunch of good tight ends here. You really do. Between Roberto Miranda, Kean Burnett, and between obviously Tyler Powell, you got some real options. And not only do you have some real options, you have some players that, could have some NFL aspirations. But again, Miranda has been really good. Like I said, I'd like to see Kean kind of get into that role at some point, but I do believe the best players should play. And if Roberto Miranda is that dude, so be it. But in this offense, though, I think that you're going to see the tight end utilized a lot. Now, you look at it, there's a lot of pass catching options here for the U of A. With the Tetaroa McMillan, obviously, we just talked about him being the best wide receiver in college football. And then I think you're going to see some real jumps from some players. I'm really glad that they didn't add a ton of wide receivers, because I think the wide receivers on this roster are more than good enough. I love Kevin Green. I think Kevin Green can be a 700-800 yard receiver this year. And he's somebody that Noah obviously has a really good connection with. I believe both those guys can benefit from each other. And then you've also got a player in Malachi Riley, who at about 6'3" can catch the ball. Not only can he catch the ball, he's fast. I mean, he showed a propensity to get open last year. Then let's not forget about AJ Jones. AJ Jones, 6'4", 6'5". Love AJ Jones. Huge dude from UCL, or originally committed to UCLA. Really fast. Shout out to Tony Jones. But this is a unit that I think is just incredibly, incredibly talented. And there's another one that we're going to add to the mix, and that is Jackson Holman out of Southern California. Now, I didn't really know what to expect out of Holman, obviously, but I don't know that Holman is one of the best, with Jackson Holman. I don't know, what he's going to be able to expect. But at the same time, I also think that it's fair to say that he is going to be in the rotation at somewhere, because again, he has looked really good throughout camp. He's kind of your typical possession receiver. I mean, but he's a little bit quicker than that. So that's probably not giving the best thing to Holman, because I think it describes a limitation that I don't believe is necessarily there. But between him and those other wide receivers, this is a unit that is going to be really, really good. And Holman's kind of like Miranda in that, he's been here. Well, he hasn't been here nearly as long as Miranda, but it was kind of buried by the previous coaching staff. And that's another thing too. Hope springs eternal when you bring in a new coaching staff, because sometimes some of these guys just, they need some new looks. They need whatever the case may be. But Holman has looked good. Not only has Holman looked good, I think Holman's going to force his way into the rotation. So again, this is a wide receiver and a tight end unit that is very deep. And I think that Arizona is really going to be able to benefit from that. And I think Noah Fafita is, because here's the thing. Noah Fafita is absolutely fantastic. The one thing about Noah Fafita is he doesn't play favorites and he understands football. Last year with JDL, there were so many times where he would have a clean pocket and he would just kind of run around and then he would just chuck it deep, or whatever the case may be. It was weird. He wasn't good at making quick decisions. Noah Fafita is the master at making quick decisions. And not only is he the master of making them, he is also the dude who is a player that, like I said, can do a lot of different things. And if you're, like one of the wide receivers' father told me a while back, he said, the great thing about Noah is if he's open, you're going to eat. And I think that's the best thing that you can say, is that as a wide receiver, you got a lot of stuff going on. The one thing I think that you're hoping, though, for is that you have a quarterback that can find you if you are getting open. And Noah Fafita has shown that. And, again, that just kind of comes down to the talent level, or, just kind of the understanding that Noah Fafita possesses that some other players, just don't all have. And that's why he was a next level type guy. Now on the offensive line, it's fascinating because offensive line wise, you got some real talent here. You've got multiple NFL players and they've all been kind of moving around a little bit. I think the coaching staff's trying to figure out exactly where they want them. Now there's some guys that are where they're going to be put. Wendell Moy is a guard, period. Wendell Moy will not be moved out to tackle. Wendell Moy will not be moved to center. Wendell Moy is a tackle. Josh Baker is a center. But after that, it's become kind of interesting. Look at Big Jonas Savanea. He is, he started at guard his first year. Then he played tackle. Who knows where he's going to play this year? I would like to see, I think that at guard, I think he has dominant potential. I would like to see him at guard, assuming the other two tackles are up for it. Obviously with Raymond Polito is he's a really good football player. Somebody that was committed to Alabama originally, and he came in and, he struggled in the bowl game for sure. But overall, you can see that he got a lot of potential to him. And not only does he have a lot of potential to him, he's also got somebody in Alex Deuce that is going to start. And, the previous coaching staff, whatever you think about them, they did a very good job generally of evaluating under the radar players, 3-star type dudes. And Deuce was the top player on their board. And Deuce is a massive guy. So I kind of trust the previous staff's eval on this. And if this current staff believes that he should start as well, then I'm going to ride with that one. Again, both of those guys are, I think, very intriguing intriguing possibilities. But overall, this is a offense that, there should be no real hiccups. This should be a dominating offense, and this should be one of the better offenses in the entire Big 12, period, point blank. It just kind of is what it is. But now let's move over a little bit and just talk about what logical expectations are in the Big 12. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right. What should logical expectations be? First of all, I think the Big 12 is a better conference than people give it credit for. I think you're going to have 4 or 5 teams in the preseason top 25. Kansas State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Utah, Arizona. Again, you have 5 teams in the preseason top 25. That is good. So again, it's not like this is the, the MAC or the Big Sky or something. These are good football teams and multiple teams that'll probably be able to get into the college football playoffs. But I think Arizona's as good as any of those because, again, Kansas State lost a lot. You lost a lot in the transfer portal. Not only did you lose a lot, you've got obviously with Kleiman, you got a really good coach, dude who knows what he's doing, and they're going to be consistently good. Same with Lance Leopold at Kansas, but again, that's Kansas State, that's Kansas. I'm not necessarily, I think at this stage in the game with Arizona's talent, they should be able to compete with both of them, and so I'm excited about that. And then Oklahoma State under Mike Gundy. Love Mike Gundy. I think Mike Gundy is one of the most underrated coaches in recent college football history. His teams are almost always in the top 25, and every third or fourth year, you're going to have a top 5 to 10 team. And so, again, he's always kind of a wild card. But I like Mike Gundy. I like Mike Gundy a great deal. He is like I said, he's a very good football coach. But then you've also got Utah. Utah is fascinating because Kyle Whittingham's probably the best coach in the conference, or, is him or Mike Gundy, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it. But with Whittingham, it's also last year, their offense took a real step back because Cam Rising wasn't there. Cam Rising, they need to be healthy. If Cam Rising is healthy at that quarterback spot, then they're going to be a problem because, again, across the board, they're always going to be solid. From the defensive side of the ball to the offensive side, they're going to be solid. But last year's team just didn't have any offense. And a big reason why is because of Cam Rising not being out there. Like I said, I wouldn't take Cam Rising over like Noah Fafita or something, but Cam Rising is also, he's just kind of a winner. He's got that moxie in play that not a lot of players have. And he's shown time and time again that he can, he can win big games against teams that probably have more talent. So again, this is a really loaded, not a really loaded, but this is a good conference for football. I think it's definitely underrated. And I think people need to kind of come to that realization. So I look at Arizona, though, and I think they got as good a chance as anybody. Now, again, you've got, you got a new coaching staff in play. I get all that. But when you've got the kind of talent that this squad does, from Noah Fafita to Teteroa McMillan to an offensive line returning 4 or 5 starters to, a defense where you've got a Jacob Manu, who we haven't even really gotten into. We'll get into him later in the week, that, should be an All-American type player. These dudes are just good, man. Like that's the best way to put it. And not only is it the best way to put it, again, I have high expectations for this squad, and I think Brent Brennan's a solid coach. And we're going to find out, I think, pretty quickly what kind of coach he is, because again, there's a lot of talent on this team, and the offense should be good. Defensively, I love Duane Akina. I think that Duane Akina was a perfect fit for the job. But Dino Babers, I'm curious to see what he had. He obviously was very good at Arizona his first time around. Curious if he still got that fastball or not. And we'll be able to, I think we'll be able to find that one out pretty early, because he's certainly not lacking for much talent coming in here. But tomorrow, then, we're going to get back to some Arizona basketball. We are going to talk about the transfer portal. Now, a big thing with the transfer portal is Arizona needs a power forward. We're going to go over those power forward lists, and not only go through that, but what they would look like, and not only what they would look like, what it would look like going forward. Because again, this is a position of extreme need for Arizona. But so we'll get all of that. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke, and we will be back with you tomorrow.